Hello and welcome to Analog Shtick, a podcast all about video games. I'm Mark Robinson, and with me today is a very good friend of mine. We go back many, many years. He's also a designer at TT Fusion. This is Ben Sharples, and hello Ben, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. Hello,
Hi,
Internet.
how's it going?
Good, yeah, not bad, thanks.
Ben is here with me today because we are going to discuss. There's this little show going on next week. It happens once a year. It's not that big of a deal, and it's only going to be announcing the two biggest sort of consoles coming out next. This big next gen thing. Yes, it's of course E3, and I'm more quietly curious than I am excited about it, and we're going to get Ben's opinions as well. But before we talk about that, let's go back to February of this year, when Sony announced gave the unveiling of the PS4 outside of actually unveiling a box, which, to be fair, it gives a fuck what the box looks like as long as it plays well. Let's get some thoughts. What did you think of Sony's original announcement of the PS4?
I was mostly underwhelmed. I think for me personally, as a gamer, Sony have done a lot of damage to their reputation with the PS3.
Yes.
And PS2 still stands as my favorite console ever. And so, to kind of sit there during the PS4 unveil and kind of go, I just can't get passionate about anything that you're saying was really disappointing. And it was too long and it was too technical, and they didn't really trot out anything that was great. The Killzone stuff was really pretty, and apparently is actually running in real time on PS4 hardware, which is very, very impressive.
Yes.
But aside from that, Knack looked like a lot of fun. But you get to stuff like Destiny, and it's all multi-platform, so it's not really PS4 stuff. So I was underwhelmed, basically. Really.
Well, I mean, I like the fact that they sort of put their hands up and went, okay, we might have made a few mistakes with the PS3, and we're actually going to try and rectify them. We're going to try and put ourselves in a position going forward, kind of opening up our arms to indie developers. And here's Jonathan Blow, who's going to put some words together in a sentence, and we hope it's kind of coherent and everyone can understand it. Which, to be fair, for the most part, he did. And I was excited by that. How much of that was just them desperately clutching at whatever is going on at the moment and sort of saying, yeah, we're relevant because we see this and we want to get with this, and how much of it was actually them generally wanting to try and tap into this market. But I think as well, like, the whole indie development side of it is going to be crucial in some ways if that does connect with the PS Vita, because right now, why there's all the talk about the PS4, the PS Vita, it's an amazing piece of technology, but it's sort of sitting there, not doing a lot.
It's only a bit amazing. Sony have seriously oversold the Vita. I think that's one of the problems, that they sold it as a portable PS3. This is the thing. I mean, they did the same with the PSP. They sold it as a portable PS2, and it wasn't. It couldn't actually manage that. So I think one of the problems with the Vita is that everyone is expecting home console gaming wherever they are, and it's never going to happen. It's too small. It's not going to give you that experience. But I think for the indie stuff, I can't remember if it was you. Someone was saying, that. The reason to want a Vita now is that the indie games you can download off the store and just play. And you have Mike Bethel on Thomas Was Alone is apparently great on the Vita.
Yes, I can confirm.
Yeah, so as a platform for that, great. But if that's what it is, if it's going to be a storefront for indie titles, 230 quid is a lot of money to ask for that.
There is, yeah. I mean, the flip side obviously is that. And I'm sure, like, along the lines, I mean, we got the Ouya coming out soon, and whether someone comes along and says, okay, well, we're going to take all these indie games, we're going to make like a handheld version and kind of use that, which could obviously end up being a lot cheaper as well, because the technology might not be needed. But no, sorry.
If they could bang out a version of the Vita that was like Vita Indie, and it was 100 quid, and it kind of cut out a load of the the bullshit stuff that no one seems to actually really care about. You know, all the guts that are there to run Call of Duty Declassified, which no one wants to play, and kind of go, right, well, this is your supplement to the PS4, or even release it with the PS1. Kind of go, this is your portable window to your indie games on your PS4. You can load them up on here. This will go with you wherever you want, and then have some optional extras when you're next to the PS4. You know, we want all of these devices to work together. Microsoft have kind of cottoned onto this with Smart Glass, but it's useless. So,
Yeah.
you know, they're not there yet. But you know, we want to sit down with our handheld next to our home console and have them do something with each other, rather than kind of go, well, these are all discrete experiences. I think, for my money at least.
No, that's fair enough. But elsewhere with the PS4, and this is the one advantage to some degree that it had over the Xbox One announcement, was games. There actually were a handful of games that were shown, and so we had the likes of Drive Club and the aforementioned Killzone, and no Last Guardian yet, but I'm hoping that they're just gonna let Xbox One do their thing, and then Sony are just gonna get right to the end and go, oh yeah, Last Guardian, by the way, launch title.
Well, I think the reason The Last Guardian wasn't there is because it's still a PS3 title. Personally, I think they're saving that for the PS3's last great hurrah. It'll be, you know, they'll get the PS4 on the market. They'll get some, you know, sort of 6 months worth of dev time on that. Get some stuff out there, and then they'll kind of go boom, and we've still got this machine. This machine is still relevant.
Well, you say about the hurrahs. I mean, apparently there's one really big hurrah giving the reviews today.
Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, as the Last of Us has been getting glowing reviews all day today outside of Polygon, but we won't mention that. Yeah, I mean, that just...
Slightly unbelievable reviews, I think. I mean, I'm sure it's superb. Naughty Dog have got pedigree up the wazoo. So, you know, I am sure, but it's got a little bit of a whiff of BioShock Infinite scoring to it, with, you know, 10 out of 10 from every possible angle.
So what you expect in the backlash in about 2 months' time of people?
No, I'm expecting it to be a 9 out of 10, an 8.5 out of 10 game. I'm expecting it to be really good.
Yeah.
I read Kotaku's review. I didn't read any others because I didn't want to risk spoiling stuff, but Kotaku did quite a nice general kind of review. And they had lots of really positive things to say about it, and a couple of negative things, which were nice to see, because at least it means they are considering the negative side. But I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic experience to play, just like the 3 Uncharted's were, just like the Crash Bandicoots back when, you know, they're spot on play experiences, and they're great. So I'm really looking forward to it. I just don't think it's 10 out of 10 across the board, because what game has ever actually lived up to that?
Bayonetta. Anyway.
Yeah, if that had got 10 out of 10 across the board, but I'm with you on that one.
The Edge gave it 10 out of 10, so as far as I'm concerned, that, you know.
Yeah, but Edge gave Lego City 5 out of 10, so screw them.
Anyway, so flash forward to, or should we say rewind to a few weeks ago, where Microsoft unveiled an actual box, the Xbox One, and my looking at it was, their pitch was, here is our new way of presenting video games with television. Which didn't exactly excite me all that much. But you have to take into account, obviously, that they had just the 1 hour to present something, and, you know, it was as much a presentation for stockholders and whatnot to say, look, here's all the big money things, and we'll, you know, get all the extra stuff that other people care about at E3, I'd imagine.
See, I felt that Sony's was more for the stockholders. I felt
really?
that the timing, yeah, really I did. The length of it, the amount of people they trotted out on stage who really didn't say very much. I mean, there was more gamer content in Sony's, but the timing of the Xbox One reveal being only what was it at the time, like 3 weeks away from
about so, yeah,
E3. It feels, to me at least, I mean, this will obviously be decided by Microsoft's press conference and what they choose to do, but the Microsoft press conference in the last 2 or 3 years has become increasingly bloated with extra services that they're adding on to Xbox Live.
Yeah.
And while it's nice to have those extra services, because as much as people complain about, you know, oh, we don't want Skype, we don't want NFL, we don't want ESPN, these things mean things to people. Personally, I quite like the idea of being able to pop Skype into the side of my game or my movie just for a quick chat with people. It's great.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the whole sort of NFL setup and whatnot. I mean, like the fact is, the Xbox and Microsoft, it's primarily a North American market that
Oh yeah.
is what they're driven by. So, the whole NFL picture. I mean, that whole conference was very much for the North American market, and we got stuff like FIFA for us to look at as well.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to see what services, if at any, or if at all, they have for us, whether they have some sort of Premiership rights or whatnot, which I can't imagine they would.
Well, I saw there was an interview with Phil Harrison on Eurogamer where they were talking to him, and he actually addressed the kind of American centric nature of that reveal. And of course, because Phil Harrison is primarily focused in Europe for Sony now, he kind of said, yeah, it was America centric. It was, everything there was very much about North America, but we had to choose somewhere is basically what he said. We had to choose a reveal, and that's the biggest market. And he actually said, in other areas in Europe and in other territories, we are going to be looking at stuff. So I don't think it's out of the question to expect that maybe they've figured out, a deal with the Premier League or whatever the right term is, because I've got no idea, with the FA or whatever, to actually bring the equivalent of European sport, with the NFL to Xbox.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, that's a huge thing. That's big. And
well, I don't know what deal they'll have, just because, like, for me, in terms of watching football on my Xbox, was just they had the Sky Sports or the Sky app on the Xbox dashboard, and I just connected up through the Sky account that we had in the time, and that was my go-to for it. So I don't know whether it'll be a case of they'll just be hooked up with Sky for some sort of, okay, yeah, here's the Sky app, and then people who have Sky accounts, whatever, want to pay the fee for the month, that's through that. Because I can't imagine, just financially wise, like the Premierships, the rights for that is just completely insane. So I can't imagine they'll have any sort of exclusive football, because I think like BT have taken up like 38 games of the season as well. So I imagine that'll be more primarily just through Sky. Because trying to figure out like the NFL setup and like the way that's distributed across the networks is just more confusing than the actual sport of American football itself, and not worth discussing because I'm English and I ain't got a fucking clue.
Unless they've decided that it's time to share the Xbox Live subscription fees. They're talking about Xbox Live for Xbox One. What was it? 300,000 servers compared to like the 10,000 servers that exist, or something like that. It was some sort of equally absurd ratio for the number of servers that are going to go online. So they're expecting another boom in already the most popular online service in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I've read and I've heard a lot about how they're going to be set up with the servers, and that's just going to be completely insane. It's going to be like something out of NASA.
Oh, it's going to be really interesting to see how they manage to keep that infrastructure taking over.
I'm hoping it'll do better than SimCity.
Yeah, well, it could explode in a giant ball of flame and probably do better than SimCity.
I can imagine that like everyone will take their Xbox One home, and then for the first 3 days there'll just be a fucking 25 gigabyte patch update or something.
Well, Microsoft have been pretty good with that.
They have, actually, to be fair. Yes.
Their network infrastructure, and being primarily a PC developer for so many years beforehand, must have helped them. But their network infrastructure is good. You can't say that about Sony, when every time you put a disc in, it's, we must now update. Please go and make 500 cups of coffee. That's how long it will take.
Yeah, I mean, actually, going back to Sony, that is one of the key things they also picked up as well, saying that the dashboard is actually going to work and is going to be responsive. And like looking at the Xbox One presentation and just how that turned on and boom, how immediate it was, and how you could snap from a game to TV. That stuff is actually very, very impressive. I'm not the kind of person where I need everything to work like that. I mean, I have an iPhone which takes a minute and a half to turn on half the time, so I have the ability to be patient and wait for something to turn on. So I don't know, like the whole Kinect thing, and like watching Yusuf up there being the smuggest prick in the world.
Oh, he was terrible, wasn't he?
Oh, the smugness was radiating.
Oh yeah, though I didn't think there was as much smug on stage again for Microsoft conference as there was for Sony. It's just a general overall level of smug. Sony just seemed to But that's every time Sony do a press conference. You just get this. I don't know about you. I get this feeling that before Sony execs are allowed on stage, they have to be gently oiled behind, and it's like squeezed out on stage, like the alien queen giving birth to the eggs.
Well, I thought they were at least a little bit. I mean, as I said, I thought they were humble enough to at least admit that they had, to some degree, fucked up with the PS3. Because it's interesting in how the roles have reversed in some way. In the Xbox One are doing this whole big, this platform. This is the convergence of medias, and this is your home entertainment system, which what Sony were trying to announce with the PS3. And I mean, in some ways, maybe it's more convenient now, 7-8 years later on, because they have the technology to make this all fit into this one box and for it all to work as immediate and responsive. But the fact is, for stuff like Twitter or whatever, I've got instant. I've got a laptop or an iPhone or an iPad or whatever. I don't need that sort of stuff in my system. I just want to put a disc in and play and be done with it.
Yeah, and the last thing that I want from a games console is it to start telling me during a game when I'm getting updates on Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah.
But I can see people wanting that. So as a feature you could turn on and off. I mean, I get annoyed when it tells me I've got an achievement because I have to stop the game and go and see what it was.
Yeah, I can't help that. It's like just a knee-jerk reaction. It's like, press the button, must you? What is it? What is it?
Yeah.
15 points. You ran 500 meters and didn't die. Woo!
Which is terrible when you're getting story achievements during like meaningful cutscenes and you have to stop and go, I was connected to that cutscene and now I have to find out that I've just completed a third of the game.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I wasn't completely enamored by the Xbox One announcement. And then there was the whole conference afterwards where they were asking all the more technological type questions, and this has been going on since with DRM and used games and them not knowing exactly what the answer is, and then someone thinking they know what the answer is, and then Xbox support saying, no, there is nothing, yes, there is something. They probably should get that completely addressed into like 2 sentences, which every single person represented with Microsoft can repeat over the next week, so we are all hammered down and all clear with what they're going to do.
You know what? I don't think they know what they're going to do.
Of course, they haven't got a clue.
Evidently. Yeah, I think the safest thing for any and every gamer who is concerned about this to actually assume is that both Sony and Microsoft have found a way to finance used game sales. Yeah, because it's a massive market. It's a massive sector of the market that they don't see any profit from, and they hate it. And you look at Japan, where pre-owned games you can't buy pre-owned games, not properly. It's largely prohibited. It's largely illegal. And it is reflected in the price of new games. New games are cheaper when you convert the yen to dollars. Not as much as they used to be. It used to be like brand new GameCube games were like 12 quid when they came out in Japan. But obviously they want to tap into this sector. So I think it's safe to say that there will be a way that they've found to monetize this. And I think it will probably end up being something as simple as you stick your game in your Xbox or your PS4, you hit the button for I'm going to trade this game in. It goes onto a server with a serial number and everything, and then you take it to a shop. They scan it at the shop. It comes up on their system, and that's it. It's done. That seems to be the most sensible way of doing it, because then Microsoft maintain control, and Microsoft and Sony maintain control over a certain portion of the market, and they take a percentage of whatever the shop decides to charge. Whatever happens, it's going to see a spike in the price, I think, of pre-owned games. Yeah,
the simpler way of putting that is just the disc is a key, and you can put it in, and I've looked at it 2 ways with this idea that if the used game market, if this works in the way that that Sony and Microsoft and the publishers want it to, and a lot of it is the publishers more than anyone else, if it does work, and the argument being that prices will come down, I can only see the other side of it being that with the AAA market and the dev costs that are involved, I don't know how much of a decrease in the price of games it will actually effectively be.
Not much.
No, that's the thing. So that there's no real proper sort of there's no black and white answer of this will work, this won't work, and that's one of the most curious things out of the next 5 years. that I'm most interested in. But I would still do that, then take the free-to-play model. But
Yeah, well, yeah, the free-to-play model just needs to die on its arse. Let's face it. With Zynga going out of business and PopCap having been sold to EA and suffering from difficulties and all of that stuff, it's rubbish. It's always been rubbish. It was a bandwagon.
I'm not going to say outright that it is a completely rubbish model. I just think that a lot of development teams didn't quite grasp exactly how free to play can work effectively. Because there are games out there that can use that model.
Jetpack Joyride.
There you go, it's a perfect example. But, you know, so many development teams just looked at it as like, how can we make as much money out of this as possible? And, you know, that sucks the soul out of this game that you're trying to play. Like I did, what I'm doing at the moment, like just 5 iOS games that you might enjoy this year. And like the 5 that I am sort of, they're the ones that I'm remembering the most. And none of them have any in-app purchases whatsoever. It's just, look, just here's a price between sort of 69 pence to £2, whatever. And here's a game, and go and play it, and you know that's working for me. But we've gone completely off track here. So there's
I'll come back to that if there's time.
We can come back to that if there's time. Yeah. So that's Sony and Microsoft. They are there. There's the presentations they did, and now we are looking ahead to next week as we have E3. And Ben, let's get some ideas flowing here. What do you think Sony? What do you think Microsoft are gonna announce? Do you think they're gonna, you know, just bring out an all-out war between executives with like that scene out of Anchorman with, you know, big pepper shakes? And
I totally tune in to watch that. I tune in to watch Sony and Microsoft executives in a battle royale any day.
Yeah,
mostly because they've all switched companies since I started watching E3. So it's like, yes, we're all fighting the company, everyone we used to work with.
And Nintendo will be sitting in the background going, a plan, it's all coming together.
They're just sitting in the background with their money machine, just going, and money goes in and money comes out. Actually, hardware goes in and money comes out. Hardware goes in, money comes out.
But the big thing for me, I'm really curious to see, is the dates that they announce both systems. Because there's a very small window, realistically, that they can announce both systems. And I can't see any good out of it. I can see this really cracking, you know, right down the middle, the actual, you know, sales they're going to get out of either of them, you know, out of the gate.
It's going to be interesting, yeah.
It's going to be like, I can see, you know, between now and when they're actually released, the price costs, how they're going to go up and down according to what the other side do. Like every action is going to have a reaction between now and when they're both released.
I don't know. I think both the machines will probably hit the market for about 400 quid each and probably remain relatively stable. I don't see how they'll be able to charge less than that. It'd be nice if one of them just kind of goes, you know what, we're going to sell this cheaply. We're going to sell this for 200 quid and we're going to pin our hopes on that shifting twice as many units as the competition. But
that's a very dangerous game to play.
Oh yeah, and I don't think it's going to happen. No. Neither Microsoft nor Sony have a history of playing games like that. No. Sega did it all the time, but
that worked out well for them.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You know, it's a cautionary tale for anyone. But then, you know, you look at the N64, which hit the market for 300 quid and really, really hurt Nintendo in the opening sales. So. Yeah. Overpricing is dangerous, underpricing is dangerous, and I think that's why, you know, they'll hit the market for about 400 quid, because you're talking about decent hardware that's not cheap to produce. Both companies have been losing money on hardware for the previous generation at least, and I would bet they were probably losing money on hardware at the end of the PS2 and original Xbox era. So it depends on how resigned they are to that, I guess.
Amazon has a cautionary price of 600 quid for the Xbox One at the moment.
Yeah, but I think they're overcharging so that they can bring it down and look good.
Oh God, yes. That I kind of looked at, went and there was also a cautionary price for FIFA, the new FIFA game, for 80 quid as well. So again, along the same lines, will probably come down before they're actually released. Yeah, that was like. Okay, probably won't be buying that out of the gate, but you know, again, that's
not
just
FIFA, certainly.
No, again, just a cautionary price though.
Yeah, 50 quid, I reckon. Maybe they'll try for the 60 quid mark again this time, but Xbox 360 games sat at 50 quid for a good 8-9 months after release, didn't they? It was a long time before they dropped down, and they still release at 45 quid instead of the 40 that we expect from games when we played them in the 90s.
Yeah, see, the thing with that, I feel that is what, even with the whole used game market thing, that I think is one of the key things that could really cripple, even more so than they already are, the games retail market. Because the simple fact is, supermarkets are selling games, just that little bit cheaper because they're happy to take that loss to get people in the store. And I think this could be, if prices do on new games go up that little bit more to 50 quid, 55 quid or whatever, I could still see supermarkets keep, staying around that 40 quid mark.
Definitely, yeah.
And that could really hurt, game and the like. And, well,
I
HMV
think
is really a lost cause.
Well, HMV, and they have been bought out. They have got other things to buoy them, but no, I think the days of dedicated game shops are numbered by a long way. It's not that long now before basically all the high street shops are gone, is it? Let's talk, really, really depressingly about this. Tesco, Sainsbury's, all of these, big chain supermarkets are now offering everything that you could buy on the high street in one location for reasonable prices, competitive prices, better word.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just eventually, the whole high street just evolves into one giant Tesco's, and you go in and you just take your little Segway and trundle for half an hour to the games section, which is a giant behemoth of a wall, or in fact, it's just a USB socket that you load your special USB device into, and it loads your game onto, and you just buy it there.
I feel like you've watched one too many hard sci-fi films in your day, Ben. I've got to be honest.
I've watched a lot of hard sci-fi films, way more than one too many. But that is doom and gloom, and it's Brave New World all the way. But it is more feasible to kind of think that these big supermarket chains are going to be more successful than the dedicated game shops. They're getting in. They're getting in the parents. Every parent, in the world goes to buy food because you need it apparently to live. And while they're there, every parent gets bugged by their kids to buy them the latest thing. And if it's there on the shop, if you've got the latest FIFA game and it's next to the carrots, you're onto a winner.
I've got to be honest, working in a supermarket quite regularly, I've never seen FIFA next to the carrots.
No, but the principle,
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there, and I'm now also very depressed by your concept for the future.
Sorry,
Thank you very much.
More upbeat. There will be dedicated game shops in every living room, and they will be staffed by polite, nice people who know things about video games.
And there'll be no USB ports anywhere.
There'll be no USB ports anywhere at all. Even computers, all the USB ports will seal up like Neo's mouth in the Matrix. And
in the near future, USB ports will be banned, as far as I'm concerned. Apart from the one for my microphone.
Yeah. No, even that one. You'll have to get a microphone that connects via Bluetooth.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it'd be horrible. Everything will sound like this.
Sounds like that half the time anyway. It's all post-production. Anyway, the one thing I've been sort of saying to people, and obviously there's no way it'll ever happen, is if Sony and Microsoft have no idea what date the other one is releasing it, and they at some point say, yeah, we're both releasing it, and it's the exact same day. That's just the perfect scenario for me and Nintendo to look and laugh in the background and go, you've cancelled each other out. But obviously that will never be the case. I can see it being like a 2-week window, probably at max and minimum.
Yeah, well, I can't see them actually committing to coming out on the same day, but yeah, I'd say 2 weeks, maybe even a week. I mean, they're going to want to get them both on shelves before Black Friday, aren't they? If we're actually looking at a worldwide release of both pieces of hardware, which I don't think is an unfeasible thing this generation, and Sony have already, there was that ad in the Metro, wasn't there, that for UK Metro, obviously just saying PlayStation 4 coming 2013. So
yeah. So I was thinking actually after Black Friday.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if they make it quite clear that, both consoles are going to be out then, I can see it being the case that, people know they're coming, so they're going to be dedicated. Okay, well, we're skipping Black Friday because we're saving for this. I could see that being the case, maybe.
I don't know. I think that would be underestimating the sales potential of Black Friday. I think you'd see significantly more sales of PS3s and Xbox 360s during Black Friday, and with people kind of just going, well, you know, the next one's coming out. We've got all these games. I don't know. I genuinely, on this one, I really can't lock down a prediction because it just seems so mad. If you know, E3 used to be like, oh yes, you know, we're bringing out this piece of this new console and it will be out spring next year, but it doesn't look like that's what they're driving for. It might be that's what they do, but
Well, that's like the whole thing about what has me not excited about E3 this year, but just really curious because, you know, no one's like, what the fuck is going to actually happen here other than they're going to announce a bunch of games and then hopefully we're going to get a definite, right, this is DRM, this is used games, this is how this system's going to work.
I don't think we'll get that, but yeah.
In a perfect world. Well, in a perfect world, they wouldn't exist. What about sort of games-wise then? What are you looking forward to or thinking might be announced?
You know, I'm kind of mystified on this one as well. I mean, Microsoft. I'm hoping for Microsoft conference, right, that their preamble thingy the other day was their way of getting all this stuff out the way. And they mentioned, you know, we've got 15 exclusive titles. They put it up on the screen. It was 15, wasn't it?
It was about 14 or 15,
14,
yeah.
And I'm hoping that their press conference will basically be them just going game, 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 and they'll just tick off that list. And we've already got when they announced Forza 5, so it'd be nice to see some actual gameplay instead of some this might be an engine camera. Nice, we've rendered a tiny little road in really high poly to make it look good. Well, so there's Forza 5. I guess Destiny will remain in Sony's conference, but I mean, it's multi-platform, so bleh. But you know, they've got Rise is Xbox exclusive, and that might make a showing. They've got there was something else that I was thinking. I guess they'll probably keep Call of Duty, and we'll get some gameplay of that. We'll probably
More dogs.
So sorry.
More dogs.
More dogs. Yes, the dogs. The dogs were very impressive.
They were.
You know,
I'm already calling it that the dog will die in that game halfway through.
You know what? If I have I'm going to alienate the entire internet. If I can shoot the dog at the beginning, I will. That's how I felt in Fable 2. It's just like, go away. You're just annoying.
I'm going to be playing it all day Saturday. I'm going to probably shoot that damn thing straight away.
It's yeah. Unless they can actually manage to replicate. What's the is it dog meat in Fallout 3? On Fallout in general, who actually is a useful partner to have with you because you don't have to pay any attention to him whatsoever. He just turns up, kills everything, and then goes away. Then you know maybe. Anyway, dogs. Yeah. So you know I think they'll keep Call of Duty on the stage. Maybe see some gameplay. We'll get a pre-rendered Halo 5 teaser. I don't know whether we'll see next gen Gears. I kind of feel like Gears is played out.
You know what? I think they did a lot of damage by the whole Gears of War Judgment thing. If they had saved that and there was none of the Judgment, and then we'd had a next gen Gears announced here, I think that would have been a lot more effective.
Probably.
Because the whole Judgment thing, it just was like, it's just not kicking for me.
The real shame is that Judgment is good. It's People Can Fly have done quite a nice little job, but yeah,
it's effective. It does the job, but it's not. I didn't really feel like it was, you know.
It's not exciting.
No.
But Gears hasn't been exciting for a while. I mean, the Gears 3 did well, obviously, because it's Gears, and it was a nicely produced little game if you're a Gears fan. Yeah. But it didn't exactly come out to the roaring fanfare of, you know, even Halo 4 got more recognition, or I felt Halo 4 got more recognition when it came out.
Well, I think the thing with that is Gears of War 3 served its purpose of finishing off the trilogy of the series. Halo 4 was this kind of brand new adventure where, you know, Bungie is no more a part of this now, and I think that was where a lot of the intrigue and excitement came from.
Yeah, it was good as well, so, you know, that helped.
I will question, like, with the whole 14 and 15 exclusives, like, how many of them are going to be Connect games? Yeah. That's what worries me.
Well, they've got...
How many of them will be Star Wars Connect games?
They've announced... what was it? Harmonix's new thing, which is a game full of pop artist music, it looks like a dance game from the trailer, which is really abstract. I don't know if you've seen it.
And probably never will see it if you're going to describe it the way I think you're going to.
It looks like it's a dance game, much like Dance Central was, but rather than being a prescribed set of moves, it looks like what they're going to do is like, well, you can just dance the way you want to dance, and and the game will kind of give you a score based on your timekeeping, which is kind of cool. But I mean, Dance Central was a good game. All three of them, they iterated nicely and improved every time, right up to Connect Star Wars Dancing, which was the best bit of the game and the best Dance Central iteration. But the real galling thing about what Harmonix are doing is that they've taken a whole load of pop artists' music, or at least from the trailer, it looks like, and they've slapped Disney's Fantasia on it as the name of the game. It's like they've just kind of taken the name Fantasia, which was an animated movie designed to teach kids about the structure of an orchestra, and gone, well, Fantasia's got something to do with music, hasn't it? We'll put Bruno Mars in, and that'll be fine. That'll work.
I wasn't expecting you to say any of what you just said there.
Yeah, it seems like a really, really cynical, nasty move, and it's not one that I like to see on the part of Harmonix, but they are a Microsoft puppet, so...
Wow. Oh, I feel like I need to scrub myself down after hearing that.
Yeah, it's not nice. I'm hopeful that they go, it was all a lie! We've taken the original Fantasia and we've introduced it into this beautiful section, and we're going to teach you about rhythm, and we're going to put stuff out there, and you can play with the orchestra and bring up, and conduct the orchestra, and you can be the string section, you can be the horns and be the percussion and all that stuff. But I think it's going to be a game where you can independently flail your limbs, and the game will tell you that you're fantastic, whatever you do, and it's got Disney on the cover, so it will sell like hotcakes.
See, now, because I was going to say, like, the problem with really taking away a lot of the restrictions of a dance game and scoring you points on your coordination, well, the problem is most people are idiots and have no coordination. And the good thing about giving those sort of restrictions is it limited the amount that you needed to do, obviously, into harder modes and stuff.
That's a great statement. It's just like, hello, internet, you're all crap.
Well, I'm going on the general consensus of me, and I'm an idiot and I have no coordination, so I just presume we're all like me, obviously, with my ego and all that sort of stuff. But, that's like, because there was the... Oh god, what was the music game that came out? Was it Rocksmith?
Yeah, the one that was that Canary?
That's just an actual guitar, and I'm like, well, I'd rather just play my guitar then. Like, half the charm of Rock Band and Guitar Hero is that you've got this. It still feels like a game. It's it's a hunk of plastic, but it's kind of shaped like a guitar, and you have fun with that.
Like any you get simulation game, you play Virtua Tennis because you can't play tennis. It's a simplified version where you don't need the professional skill. You simply get to pretend to be a professional with a much more simplified interface.
Yeah, and like Wii Sports was a very nice middle ground of giving you the basic interaction of playing tennis, but still feeling like still you're playing a game of tennis on a computer.
Yeah, it was a great little Wii Sports. Oh, the Wii! What the hell happened there?
They added a U on the end of it and added high definition, and then forgot to add games.
They did. They added one very, very particular game that it will be a horrible plug if I mention it again, because I mentioned it earlier, so I'm not going to. But just touching on the Wii U briefly before we return.
Yeah, we should actually.
The conferences. I like my Wii U because I bought one when it came out. I like the hardware. I like the gamepad a lot. I like the stuff that they have released. Nintendo Land is great in multiplayer. Really, it's been a long time since I've seen a room full of people on their feet shouting at the TV screen because of stuff that's happening.
I have that every time I pull out the N64 and put on Mario Party 2.
Yeah, it's exactly that feeling, and it's been a long time since I've actually felt. I didn't feel that on the GameCube. I didn't feel that on the Wii, and the Wii U has delivered that. But
you never felt it on the Wii.
Not really.
I mean, I guess with the Wii, it was more of a family-orientated gathering.
Yeah, and I hate my family, so it doesn't work. Disclaimer, my family, if you do actually listen to this, I love you. But, no, I personally didn't get it on the Wii, but I guess, I don't know, Wii Sports was the only kind of thing I can think that the Wii did that a little bit with, and it felt that much more civilized. It was kind of like, oh, well done. Oh, you've scored a point.
Well, I guess there was Wii Play as well, and then there was the Sports Resort. But no, yes, Wii Sports was pretty much it. You know what, right? Because actually, I got to play a Wii U for the first time about a month and a bit ago, and I was holding it and I was playing it, and I was like, this is all really cool. And if I didn't have a Nintendo Wii, I would probably buy a Wii U.
Mm.
But I have a Wii, and I can't really justify having a Wii and a Wii U because it does just feel like a slightly more advanced version of something that I'd already have, with a bunch of games that I don't really have a lot of interest in. Zombie U was pretty cool. I had a bit of fun with that.
Yeah.
But, I've got a whole back catalogue of Wii games. Most of them are quite appalling, but there are still some, gems in there.
Oh, there are definitely some gems, yeah.
And I can work my way through them, and I've still got the Virtual Console to, have my fun with. So,
You say on the Virtual Console, just to touch on it because you've mentioned it, yes, Virtual Console on the Wii U is the same deal, but
Yeah.
the mileage that they're actually, at least for me, that they're gaining out of having all the Virtual Console games playable on the joypad.
That is a very cool feature.
Loads of times where I've been watching TV in an endless stream like I do, and I've just kind of been watching something on TV, and I've just reached over, picked up my gamepad, switched on my Wii U, and started playing Super Metroid. Yeah. Just because it's there, and I can do both things simultaneously without having to.
And it costs 30p.
And it costs 30p, or if you already own it. We don't know how much it costs if you already own it on Virtual Console. It's it's going to cost something, but it's not been kind of done yet, has it? But yeah, I mean, that's great. But the last 3 generations have demonstrated Nintendo's complete lack of ability to support hardware out of the gate with software. Because, the GameCube, what were the GameCube launch titles? They had Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader, which was great, but was a Star Wars game, so it was already a niche market. And I can't even remember what the other... Luigi's Mansion, which was a fantastic game, is a fantastic game, but was a Luigi game, so everyone kind of went, what? And I don't think I can even remember what the rest of the launch lineup was for the GameCube, but it wasn't strong.
I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. I'm presuming Pikmin must have been a little bit later.
Well, Pikmin, yeah, because Pikmin never got an actual iteration on the Wii, of course. Oh, sorry, yeah, we're talking about the GameCube. My brain's going flare. Yeah, I think Pikmin came a bit later, and that that was an unknown entity when it came out. It wasn't like they didn't launch with Super Mario Sunshine. They didn't launch with Wind Waker. No. And then they launched the Wii with Twilight Princess, sure, but with a GameCube game. So they set the benchmark for visuals at least low. When you compare it, Twilight Princess to what they achieved with Super Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2, which are gorgeous even by today's standards.
Yeah.
They set the benchmark for what developers had to beat quite low, and they filled it full of pointless, nasty waggle controls when you could just play it on the GameCube with buttons, and it was a much more authentic Zelda experience. It's also arguably the worst Zelda game ever made.
I'm sorry, but Skyward Sword takes that.
It certainly does not. Skyward Sword is great. Granted, the controls are as dodgy as all motion-based controls are, but Skyward Sword introduced a lot of stuff that...
Skyward Sword is terrible. Twilight Princess, there are a few problems with it, yes, I will admit, but Midnight is the best sort of side character kind of partner there is, and whatever the hell that thing is in Skyward Sword was just 10 steps back after how good Midna was.
The best is Tattle, by a long way.
I like Tattle, but I much prefer Midna.
No, Midna was a Pokemon. She just didn't belong there at all. Although I do love, I love the fact that because of all the, you've got Navi and Tattle and all the names are designed to kind of be an Informy type name, and the fact that Midna anagrams to admin, I really like, because it feels so forced, but at the same time feels fantastic. But yeah, I personally just really didn't like Twilight Princess. It felt dour and dull, and it just felt like they were trying desperately to reclaim the glory of Ocarina of Time and failing miserably. Skyward Sword, for me, the major problem with Skyward Sword is that the ambition far eclipsed the capability of the hardware, both in terms of visuals and control. But they introduced stuff that has been a standard of other RPGs for a long time, like potion mixing, equipment improvement, resting, which sounds like a daft thing, but actually is really, really useful when your health system requires less than 1 heart to go ba-dang, ba-dang, ba-dang at you all the time. My least favorite thing about any video game ever.
Yeah, my problem is you just essentially have to play the same game over 3 times, more or less, and I didn't really like the antagonists, I thought they were a little bit uninspired, and the whole flying bit just felt a bit wonky.
Oh, to start with, I got the hang of flying in the end, but I can go with you on to start with. But it all ties into they're trying to do stuff with the controls that they just can't do.
No, that's true. I mean, it goes without saying, like, I played through Twilight Princess on both the GameCube and the Wii, and the GameCube version is so much more fun to play.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on, because we could probably spend an hour arguing over this.
Well, should we just quickly, because, Wii U, upcoming Wii U stuff, there isn't any. There's Pikmin 3.
Which you can play with a Wii controller. I spent like 30 minutes watching the fucking conference to be told I could play Pikmin 3 with my Wii controller. Well, this is half an hour of my life I'm not getting back.
Or the Pro controller, or the gamepad. It seems a little bit kind of like they don't have faith in their own device, but I think most people will opt to play it with the gamepad because I do think that'll be the best experience. But
it's still a terrible USP.
I was actually having an argument with a guy at work today about the fact that USPs as an idea are just terrible.
Yeah.
They're just awful way to think about developing games. But yeah, so I mean, it's got Pikmin coming up. There are some things. I think I read something somewhere though that including everything that's out for it at the moment and everything that's been announced, there are 19 games. So that's up to the end of the year, as far as we know, because I mean, I'm sure they'll announce new stuff. Their not E3 press conference Nintendo Direct thing that they're doing, but it's a really sour kind of look. It's bleak for the Wii U at the moment. But all they need to do is say, Super Mario Galaxy 3, that's coming out. And
now, I was having this discussion with Chaz, actually, because he was saying, the next Mario game, what will it be called? And I was like, well, as far as I'm concerned, the only place they can go is Super Mario Universe, but that's just sort of elongating the problem. So I just went with Reboot.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think they could get some mileage maybe out of doing something like Super Mario Worlds.
Well, like an open world type.
No, not open world, but allowing you having levels that actually range from like the bottom of the ocean all the way out into space.
Okay.
So you've got a massive scale because obviously, I mean, they pushed, as I said earlier, Galaxy is gorgeous. Okay, you put it on a HD device and you're going to start seeing some cracks, but they can tart up those visuals. Nintendo always make incredible stuff out of their own hardware. And if they can, sort of push the grand scale of Galaxy even further to kind of go where you can go all the way down here and then all the way up here, and it's huge, but still keep the direction that keeps Mario going, because open world is just a terrible idea for Mario. There's something to go with on that. And then New Super Mario Bros. 2 is the best 2D Mario game I've played in a long time. So if the Mario R&D team can actually come up with something impressive whilst keeping the core of what Mario is alive, then great, keep pushing it. But
I still think they should do a Mario origin story, and we go back to, why did Mario become a plumber? I want to go for the hardships of being a plumber, and him and his brother, making the business and starting up, and then how they got introduced to Princess Peach.
I just love the idea of it being like the opening to Assassin's Creed 2, where you actually see Mario get born, and he comes out of the womb, and he's like there, and you have to kick his little legs, and then you play him.
No, he just jumps out, wahoo!
Right out of his mother. Wow, that's an image that's going to stay with me.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
But obviously, they have announced stuff like Wind Waker HD, which, even as much as I just want to be the cynic and say, my God, that's how desperate Nintendo are, the idea of Wind Waker HD does excite me a little bit. I'm not going to complain about that.
I am slightly worried about that based on the screenshots, just because it looks like their lighting system is just a little bit too over the top. There's a lot of bloom going on, and Wind Waker as a game is going to be timeless. In 50 years time, when we're not actually playing on anything, we just plug ourselves in and the game just gets downloaded into our brain. We never actually play it, we just get the memory of having played it and go, oh, that's fun. We can still plug in our GameCubes and go, look, this is Wind Waker, and it will still look gorgeous.
I'm just if we're going to have some sort of future in the way you're thinking, I'm hoping it's more like Demolition Man than anything else. Like, I want to high-five someone and not actually have to touch them. That's That's what I'm after.
That's what you want from the future.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Microsoft can supply that.
And Wesley Snipes, obviously.
Kinect 3 will be Xbox Live enabled high-fiving.
With Wesley Snipes?
With Wesley Snipes. Well, that's all he can do now, isn't it?
That's true.
Dear Wesley, we're really sorry. But you haven't made any good movies since, the whole prison thing.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we're way off topic now, but what did you think of the Link to the Past 2?
I like the idea of everything they've shown off gameplay-wise. Handheld Zeldas have always been my favorite Zeldas, really. Which is odd because you'd think that's because you can pick them up and put them down, but it's not. I just think that the handheld teams deliver chunks of gameplay really, really effectively, and you just get such a nice kind of feedback loop of. You don't walk into an area like you do with a console Zelda and go, here's a temple, it will take you 40 hours to finish it, and at the end there's a boss so difficult you will be bludgeoning your friends to death in frustration. Instead, it's more like, here's a 5-minute challenge, here's another 5-minute challenge. So as a handheld Zelda game, really looking forward to it, and I really like the mechanics. I think calling it Link to the Past 2 is a cheap cash-in.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? If you're going to cash in on something, yeah, sure, cash in on Link to the Past. Why not? I mean, it's
been at least 20 years, Yeah. They've at least waited a while.
If they'd called it Ocarina of Time 2, I would have been kind of more like, what? But
I'm still waiting for Majora's Mask 3D. That's all I ask for in life.
What is going to happen with? I think the Majora's Mask will see a 3D port, because why the hell not? It's just too good not to, and the words won't come to describe how good Majora's Mask is.
I reckon it'll either be that, or they'll take the Final Fantasy VII route of showing off a nice little trailer at some point, and then that will be it, and we will never hit anything again.
I don't know. Well, I'm firmly of the opinion that Final Fantasy VII HD is sat in a drawer in Square Enix's office, and they're just sitting there going, no, it's not dire enough yet. When we get into really dire straits.
Actually, that's the sort of thing that although the last Final Fantasy game, that was cross-platform, wasn't it?
13.2? That was Xbox and PS3, and so was 13. Yeah. And
okay, well, I was just thinking that if the next one was Sony exclusive, and it was a case of it was that traumatizing that it would probably be the most convenient go-to for them. Is just Final Fantasy VII HD. Because to be fair, like, I never played Final Fantasy VII back in the day. I only really played it for the first time about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not much of a JRPG person anyway, but I was getting into the story and the characters and the music, but it's that fucking awful to look at in the actual in-game stuff.
You know what? I actually quite like some of the way that they've done the in-game stuff. It looks dated. But I have a massive soft spot for those little characters on the map that you control that have got the big cube arms.
Maybe it's more playing it on anything over a 30-inch TV screen is the problem.
Could be. I did play it on a 14-inch CRT. Yeah.
Yeah. That yeah.
But yeah, it seems like a no-brainer really to bring that back, and I just think Square Enix are resisting until they pump Tomb Raider to death, and they pump Deus Ex to death, and all of that stuff that they bought.
New Deus Ex iOS exclusive, I read today. Yeah, pretty much.
I just remake Deus Ex 1. Just do it, guys. You've dovetailed really nicely with your prequel, and you've made us forget about Invisible War, and just make it and be good with it.
I love it when you get passionate about these things, Ben. It's fantastic.
Well, it's like Human Revolution was like an audition for me. It was like, yes, you can make Deus Ex games. You know how to make Deus Ex games. Now, you've proven this. You've got your sales. Get triple the budget and loads of dev time, and just give a good run-up and remake one of the finest games that's ever graced home systems. Why not? Just, given what you could do now, that the capability of current hardware, not just graphically, but the way that you could integrate all of the different systems, the choices, and the open world, the different, you could blow it up and make it just gorgeous. So that's what I want from Deus Ex. Anything else at the moment is just a cash in kind of my view.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, got a bit past.
You you went off on a little tangent there. I was loving it. I was great. I
Deus
just sit back
Ex
and relax.
pushes one or two buttons, which is of course the point because it's a video game. Huh.
Yes, yes. So where the hell were we?
I
We
think
were talking about
we
something.
were talking about something something.
E3,
That's the one. I
maybe.
think. Yeah. Well, we did. Yeah. So, well, I think it all started when you asked me opinions on Microsoft stuff.
There we go. And went from there.
So yeah, I think if to wrap that up, if you know they have a conference which is just games, and they give us your blockbusters and they give us some smaller stuff and some stuff that comes out of left wing, and they explain their attitude toward the indie market. That's what I
Yeah,
want.
that's one thing. Because that I don't understand their mentality behind taking out the Xbox Live market and the indie market, and it's just a free for all. That just seems like a really bad idea.
It's really odd. On the one hand, I think it's a great idea. On the other hand, I think it's a terrible idea. Because they've kind of said, you know, it will all be under the title of games. It'll all be there.
Well, I get
But
that
they'll
much.
be, yeah, but they're kind of saying, from what I've picked up, that they'll kind of be basically two things that are presented to you when you kind of hit games. There'll be the popular sales stuff, the stuff that's selling really well, but there'll also be like community upvoted stuff, and there'll be moderated stuff. So, you know, if they're seriously kind of going, right, well, obviously the popular stuff is just going to be populated with all of the XBLA games that are made by the smaller studios but are really, really popular. But they're also going to employ people to push, you know, sort of indie stuff to the front as well. Then cool, yeah, that's great. If on the other hand they're just going to turn it into a giant festering pit of games, I mean, you can't get much worse than the Xbox Live Arcade indie market right now anyway, because it's
Yeah.
buried away in the background. So I kind of applaud them for rooting that right out and going, we need to start fresh with this.
Well, the thing as well, and this might be a controversial statement, but I find that about 90%, maybe more, of stuff content on the Xbox Live Arcade indie market is rubbish.
Yeah.
So to a certain degree, I can see why that has been uprooted because it's all fucking garbage. But the actual just the arcade bit itself, and you know your Super Meat Boys and all that sort of stuff, I liked that it just had its own little platform, its own little place where it just kind of sat there, and you know you could explore it and you could have fun just looking through and seeing what there was. But if it comes across with like the ideas that you've said, then I think that that might work if they've got the right people in place and it's presented on the dashboard in the right way. But if it's going to be a case if you go in there and there's just going to be like FIFA and Call of Duty there the whole time, then yeah, that system doesn't work.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
I think if it's that system, the ideal system, it's great. And if it's the ideal system, I prefer it to Sony's attitude, because while I do applaud Sony's apparent kind of engaging with the indie market, and I know Mike Bithell said that he had a great time getting Thomas Was Alone up there. They've obviously done Unfinished Swan. You were speaking with the guys who made Race the Sun, and they said they were talking to Sony and all of that stuff. You know, they seem to be very open to dialogue with indie developers. That's really cool. It seems really healthy right now. What concerns me about Sony's attitude is that in the end, it's just a little bit too easy for it to turn into Sony selecting stuff to go on their platform. You know, then they're kind of cherry picking the best bits, which is totally understandable from a business point of view. And
well, I think that seems to be what they've done so far at the moment. They've picked out a lot of the kind of bigger indie games, specifically of last year,
yeah,
that came out with your likes, you know, your Spelunky and Hotline Miami. Which, to be fair, if you're going to start off there, some good places to start off with.
yeah, and if they're going to be even-handed about it and they're genuinely going to go to the good games, then great. But if they're just going to pump Castle Crashers stuff up there, you know, I mean, Castle Crashers was fun, but it wasn't actually as good as everyone says it was. But it's sold a gajillion copies, and it's still 1,200 points now because it just sells and sells and sells. And if all they're going to do is look for the stuff that sells rather than the stuff that's interesting, then that just defeats the entire purpose of having an indie section on the console in the first place.
I'm not going to go entirely with that. Just like using something like Thomas Was Alone, which doesn't immediately look like something that you would see to put up on the PlayStation 3 and the PS Vita, and you know it's sold pretty well for Mike.
Oh yeah.
But that's one of those. I still think there was at least a little bit of a risk and a little bit of a gamble by using that, and it seems to have done very well. So I'm not gonna just put my cynical hat on and say that no, they're just gonna pick all the bigger stuff. I think they've got their hearts and hands and minds in the right place.
Well, I hope that's the case, because if that's the case, then great, because they're looking at stuff and putting it up there, and they can really create a really strong catalog of interesting experiences and deliver them to a wide amount of people, and that's fantastic. That's what having the indie engagement with this is for. Compared to something like Greenlight, I think that's even more powerful, because Greenlight's a really great idea, and some fantastic stuff has gone up there, and is going up there. But
it's a flawed system, though.
It's a flawed system, and whenever you have something that's voted for by the community, you're kind of locked.
As I said, people are idiots.
Yeah, you get locked into this idea of the community only knows what it wants based on what it's already had. You can't introduce anything new, because the community won't vote for it. So if Sony are genuinely looking at presenting interesting experiences, then great. But as I said, I'm somewhat cynical on the front of Sony right now. So yeah. What? They've got a long way to go to prove themselves to me.
No, I can see that. What else is there to think about? We could talk a little bit. We did mention it at the start, but stuff that isn't entirely the games side of things. And a lot of this is more on the Xbox One, with just the crazy amount of services they're going to have with television. And it feels like part of their conference was as much trying to butt heads with Apple as it was with Sony. At what point do we just have the TV that just does everything and is just convenient? Because I've tried to understand. I'm not much of a tech head, but trying to understand the specifics of plugging your Xbox One into your TV and it just being this dedicated television in your box. And I don't know the logistics behind that, and I don't know the ramifications behind that.
No, they haven't really said. What do you plug your aerial into the back of your Xbox? Does your Xbox it's got 2 HDMI ports on the back, so maybe it does something clever with HDMI ports, or maybe you can link it up to 2 monitors. Or on that front, they've been very cagey on details. There certainly doesn't look, because they released that. Did you see that 3D image they released of the Xbox One that you could spin around?
No, I've just seen the actual box itself in a picture.
They released a 3D QuickTime thing, and you could interact with it and just spin it around. It was just a model sat there, and you could just spin it around. But you could see the back of it, and you could see the ports. And I'm going to spectacularly fail to remember what ports there are, but there's two HDMI ports and 3 USB ports, I think, and the Connect port and the power connector. But it doesn't look like there's a standard aerial connection on the back, so it's not going to work like a VCR or a DVD player used to work, or DVD-R. It's got to do something else, and maybe they're just going to stream everything from the internet, in which case that raises a whole load of questions about who's providing the television, what television will be available, will you have to subscribe to other services for the television to function, or will it all come through XBL, all of that stuff. And yes, they need to explain that stuff, though of course if they say TV in their E3 press conference, everyone will eviscerate them on the internet before they've got a chance to say the next words, which I do think is a little unfair, but
passionate people, gamers,
yeah, that's true. Passionate,
and the thing with that as well is, if everything is streaming online, they're going with this whole you need to be connected to the internet. It needs to connect every 24 hours, or that's what they've said. Are they looking ahead to 5 years to 10 years time, where they're just expecting everyone who's going to play this machine has a internet connection of a quality and speed that these things will not be an issue?
Maybe. Well, they did that with Xbox Live, didn't they? When they released Xbox Live on the original Xbox, there were about 6 people who had the capacity to actually play it reliably.
And before that, we had the Dreamcast, which had about 2 people.
And only Phantasy Star Online, which those 2 people thoroughly enjoyed, but no one else managed to actually play. And that that was all dial-up and stuff. I think maybe they are just looking forward to the point where only the people who aren't going to be interested in the hardware in the first place don't have the internet connection to support it. And I can't really fault them for that. As a business model, yeah, it's exasperating now. But they're looking. This generation has lasted what, 8 years, which is
Yeah.
the longest of any generation that's come before. I think this generation coming up could be even longer. We could be looking at a 10-year console cycle. If it's not the last hardware generation, just full stop.
Don't say things like that. No, I think the key thing is, obviously technologies have advanced and all that sort of stuff over each generation. But the leap, and it's not just technologies, it's just everything in terms of media has just expanded so much in these 8 years that, back 8 years ago, Microsoft and Sony had no idea about. So I think that these machines are probably, I'd imagine, being built in ways that they can, handle anything that comes up in the next 10 years or so. And even just little things like, the Facebook and Twitter apps, which on the Xbox are just fucking rubbish.
Yeah.
But little things like that, I'm sure they will look into that and make sure that they're done correctly this time.
Well, there should be. I mean,
that's stuff that I find curious as well.
Yeah, I think that will be a big thing, and I think they'll be trying to anticipate that evolution speeding up this time as well, because I think they were caught off guard. It's why Microsoft re-engineered the entire dashboard, because they had this realization that bugger, the system we've designed doesn't support the way that the gamers, the way that people want to interact with this hardware. I'm sure that there were lots of gamers going, no, all I want to do is put the disc in and play games, which is totally fair enough, but there are a lot of other people out there who use their Xboxes for a lot more. I mean, there must be so many people who now use it to stream Netflix, just by default. They just expect that as a service.
This is true, yeah. Yeah, I like just looking at my friends list most of the time. Yeah, at least half of them are on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a powerful service, and I was wondering quietly to myself today. I mean, well, who's going to be the first provider to go? Well, your subscription, let's just hypothetically say your Xbox subscription entitles you to Sky TV, entitles you to Netflix, it entitles you to a whole host of paid services, to Spotify, to the first. I don't see why it's not happened yet. The first provider, surely, to provide one unified subscription that gives you access to your movies, your TV, your music, your books, everything just there in a central hub for one subscription is going to be leagues ahead, because at the moment, the amount of services. I mean, I have subscriptions to both Netflix and Love Film. I don't want to have two subscriptions. It's just that where 90% of the time Netflix is fine, and then 10% of the time Love Film goes, actually, we've got it. But it as much as unification of all this stuff is bad for the companies, it's good for the consumer, and at some point they're going to have to reconcile that.
Or do you think it could get to the point where Microsoft could have some sort of deal where you pay they've got the gold and silver packages, but they could have a platinum package of 50, 60 quid or however much a month, and that's just everything you are entitled to, your Netflix and whatever services as well, and then they can keep the gold package, which is just you can play online, and then silver package for us peasants.
I actually think it might reverse. It might be your Xbox Live subscription pays for your early access to demos, it pays for your Netflix, it pays for this, it pays for that, it pays for the other. And you can also play online if you really want to. I think play online actually is going to become less important, because server maintenance is going to become something just so routine. Because, the need to maintain 300,000 servers is astronomical. Yeah, that's the word.
I'm good for something sometimes.
So it has to. Oh, you're good for lots of things, Mark.
Oh, thanks.
So they have to be able to bang out the service stuff without any faults now. I mean, there haven't been huge faults on Xbox Live in a long time, but they need it to just be faultless.
With Sony, do you think that they will follow suit and they will start charging for their online services?
I don't know. I can't figure out how they've survived without already charging for their online services, and the only thing I can think is that
PlayStation Plus,
and I think
which is great, by the way.
There must be, yeah. Well, I'll talk about my problems with that in a minute.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fun.
There must just be one executive sat in the corner, shielding himself with a briefcase, going, "We can't charge. Everyone else charges. This is the one thing we've got." while other executives throw heavy objects at him, going, "We're wasting so much money." But it is true, they've got their online infrastructure, and it was an absolute joke when PlayStation 3 went online, but it has gained traction. There are a solid number of players playing online on the PS3 at any given time. It's not as big or as well maintained as Microsoft's service, but it's there and it's free. You can just that you buy a PlayStation and you can play online, and that's great. They might start to charge a subscription, and I don't think anyone would be hugely surprised if they did.
No.
But I think a few noses might be put out of joint with
Well, as long as they can at start provide a service that works, and there's no issues, there's no problems, and if they can somehow incorporate PlayStation Plus into it as well, I don't think too many people will bat too many eyelids.
Yeah, I think that's true. I wouldn't, certainly. I'd pay for online access to games. I mean, I pay for my Gold subscription now, and I barely ever play online, but it gives me access to the Gold content. I want my demos 2 weeks before everyone. I'd like them all to just come at the same time, of course, but I'm willing to pay for the online services that Gold provide, even without being a massive multiplayer gamer. And it's just nice knowing that when I want to blast a few people in Halo because I'm a sucker, it's there. I can just sling it in, and that's the way it goes. And as a yearly subscription, it's such a tiny amount of money in comparison. I mean, that sounds really arrogant, but it is, in comparison to other subscription services, it is a very small amount of money to pay on a yearly basis for the services they provide.
I'm trying to think of what else there is to talk about. Anything you can think of?
Well, we haven't really done a what's Sony gonna have at their conference. I mean, it's not it'll be the same as Microsoft's conference, but with different games, won't it?
Well, I guess, they could probably, there's going to be more games. They did talk a lot about the dashboard and all the little nooks and crannies of what the PlayStation 4 have, but I'm sure there's more stuff there for them to talk about. And I guess a lot of that probably actually will be some of the stuff we've been saying about, the online services and how that's going to work, and what new features they will incorporate into that.
There is, of course, also that Sony have actually yet to unveil their box, and I know that
there is that. For me,
yeah, I wasn't that bothered they didn't unveil the box, but I was bothered a little bit as a consumer, as a gamer, as a games fanboy. I was kind of sitting there going, I want to see what it's going to look like. And I like that Microsoft did, and I realized the entire internet has gone, oh my god, it's so ugly. But I think the Xbox One is a beautiful piece of hardware. It's quiet and elegant, and yeah, okay, it's a black box that's going to sit under my telly. I don't want it to look like some huge extravaganza, and they've managed to come out with a piece of hardware that looks like a modern piece of electronic hardware and will sit there looking good. I mean, it's after the Xbox 360, which looked like a souped-up DVD player. It's a big step forward, I think, in actual kind of aesthetic design. So Sony have got to come up to that, but I like Sony's design for their hardware as well. So I'm sure they'll come out with something that's pretty, unless of course they come out and go, there is no box, it's all in your mind.
I'm hoping they just take the original PlayStation and just attach something on the side of it, and then just go, yeah, there you go.
Just cross out one, or they're not one, just write 4 in marker on it. Just go, there you go. The original P1000, just bump. Yeah, mate. Well, it's not going to look like that, is it? Because they've released that little trailer with little glimpses.
They did, which actually did look a lot like the Xbox One in a more blurry fashion.
Yeah, I think they're going to be black boxes that sit underneath your telly.
That's my biggest issue, actually, overall, is that the Xbox One, the Wii U, they're all just these just black boxes that are just going to hide away in the corner. The Dreamcast was a colossal failure, but it had a little bit of pizzazz to it, and I can't even think. I mean, yeah, to be fair, my Xbox 360, it's not the prettiest looking machine, but it's still a unique looking machine. They're just a little bit, they're all merging into just the same thing, and I don't like that.
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a shame because there have been some great designs. A GameCube was gorgeous.
And it's a great little armrest sometimes when I'm here at the side and I got stuff to do.
Yeah, at some point, Google the chair that's made of GameCubes. There's a whole chair. It's very cool. Waste of GameCubes, of course, but very cool.
They're about 20 quid each.
Yeah. I think they're less than
Let's
that.
be
I
honest.
think I
Probably.
bought my sister one for like 12 quid a couple of years ago.
You cheap bastard.
Yeah. Well, I bought a Twiglet Princess as well, which was 40 quid because it had just come out. So I'm not that cheap. And I bought her a Jimmy. I bought her loads of stuff. I'm not cheap.
I feel like the value of those two things is so in the wrong
It's just
places.
totally the wrong way around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's what happens when you try to design hardware to appeal to the largest possible demographic, is that you're going to eventually water it down so that it's basically just a box. It's a little bit of a shame, and I like the Xbox S. I think they did a nice job of updating it so that it looks like an actual games console rather than just any old piece of hardware that you sling under your telly. But they're just going to be black boxes. And that's pretty much what Sony have that Microsoft don't, I think. It's just they're going to reveal hardware, which is more of a waste of time, I think, really, at the E3 press conference. If they'd shown the box, then it would be out the way and they could just go, here are a billion games. So, we're going to get 15 minutes of, here is the PlayStation. It's got things on it and it says PlayStation 4 in hopefully what's not the Spider-Man font.
I don't know. Maybe they'll throw a curveball. Maybe it'll be white. Probably not. No, it's just it's like many things, like music and all this sort of stuff. Just the homogenization of everything in just to what appeals to the broadest spectrum. And I'm a rebel and all that, and I like things to be a little bit different. But it's just me on the island sitting by myself.
I'm hoping it's a pink spiky ball that rolls around the room as you play games on it.
That sounds fucking. You know what? I think we missed a trick here. I think we're in the wrong part of the industry. I'm not even in the industry. What the fuck am I saying? Anyway, moving on.
You're doing this. This is industry.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to see what else is there. I'm trying to think of any other games or anything that we know of. I mean, there's stuff like Watch Dogs. We'll probably get more footage of that.
Well, there's the Ubisoft. I don't know about you, but for my money last year, Ubisoft dominated the press conferences with the best just looking selection of stuff. They had some great stuff. They announced Watch Dogs, they showed Zombie U, they showed Far Cry 3. I know that was I think it's Sony's conference as well. It was at a conference. But Ubisoft just had a great lineup and presented by Aisha Tyler, who is brilliant and is back this year as well. So, again, it might be that it's the software guys who dominate in the press conference stuff, and the hardware guys who kind of leave us feeling cold.
What I am hoping for is back in the original Xbox conference, they had Bill Gates and I think it was Bill Gates, and they had The Rock on stage. I'm really hoping they either bring John Cena on and everyone boos him and I laugh my ass off, or they bring on, I don't know, maybe a UFC star, or I'm trying to think of someone that would kind of fit the bill.
If they cheesed it up.
They might just bring back The Rock, for fuck's sake. He's actually probably just as relevant now as he was back in 2001.
Yeah, but he's not The Rock anymore, is he? He's
just Dwayne Johnson. Yeah, he's been The Rock for the last 12 months in my eyes, in my television content that I watch, which is pretty much just football and wrestling. But
this would require me knowing more about professional wrestling than I.
Well, we'll save that for another day. But yeah, I'm sure they'll bring out someone, of that caliber.
You know what I'd love it if they just cheesed it up. Microsoft could get away with it based on their history of terrible announcements. And they could just totally cheese it up just completely and deliberately go off the deep end with ridiculous celebrity appearances. And I kind of wish they'd do that, because it would be entertaining at least.
But they'll only do it while either at some point somewhere in the corner of the room where 3 people or less are listening announce that, the DRM system, it will be always online. So they're going to do it at the exact same time to detract.
Yeah. Well, they announced
the fucking politicians they are.
Yeah. It's... God, who knows what format. I mean, they're going to take the same old kind of, here's a developer who, is more at home behind a desk than they are on stage. And here's Cliff Bleszinski doing something. Well, I suppose maybe not this time, because he's all not working for Epic now. But it's just really difficult to get excited about the usual faces trotted out to talk in a kind of disjointed way about something that they've been working on, but they can't get into too much detail because it will alienate the audience completely. But here's a trailer and here's some gameplay footage, and it'll just be that over and over and over again. And okay, if they do that, then that's going to be classed as a success, isn't it? But it would be nice to think that they might do something a little bit more entertaining, given that they've got to realize that by now the E3 press conferences aren't just watched by industry people, they are watched by gamers worldwide.
Well, just remember that at some point over the week we will probably have David Cage on stage, and he will provide all the entertainment we need.
Yeah, David Cage. I love David Cage, but I hate David Cage.
I think that's like the modern the general consensus on him.
Yeah, it's really difficult. As long as they don't trot out Jonathan Blow, which they probably will, then everything will be fine. You just put him in a small box and say, "Go away, Jonathan."
Yeah. Well, no, I'm curious to see more of what Jonathan Blow announces and talks about, and I'm curious to see more of Quantum Leap, because I am interested in the work of David Cage and Quantic Dream. I just wish he would kind of shut the fuck up about emotion and high poly models and just talk about the actual fucking game.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was deliberately being evasive and trying not to kind of go, yeah, we're here to promote PS4, but my next big thing is on the PS3 and it's coming out this October, and that's really what I want to talk about, because the stuff we're doing for PS4 we haven't announced yet. It seemed a bit weird to trot him out. That's actually the other thing about the press conferences in general is how much of Sony and Microsoft's conferences are going to be taken up with 360 and PS3 stuff, because I would be very surprised if they don't try and trot out some last kind of big things for their hardware that's currently out.
Well, I mean, I've got to imagine that they will have some sort of either scaled down version or a new model of both of the machines potentially at a drop down price, because there's no reason, just from the insane amount of wealth in the back catalogue of both machines, that they should be going for some time, because the PS2 was I'm trying to think, at least a good 4-5 years was still running alongside the PS3, for better and for worse, I imagine.
Well, it was a podcast. I remember you and Russ actually talking about the death of the PS2 on an Analog Stick podcast. So,
this is true, yeah.
that it was that long that it was in the recent history that the PS2, but the PS2 is a complete anomaly. I mean, it's just such a fantastic piece of hardware that lasted such a long time and had such a ridiculously huge catalogue of games that I don't think they're not going to replicate that kind of success with it.
Not to the exact same degree, but I imagine there's still something they could go. I mean, it's just a case of having enough of the games that have just are sort of single player centric, that they can say, okay, well, whatever point that we turn off all of the stuff, so there's no more online, whatever, but hey, look, here's a smaller scaled down version, and here's the games, and boom, fuck it, go and have your fun with it.
Well, I'd be very surprised if they turn off the online stuff at all. I would have thought that they would have,
at some point they have to, surely.
I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, maybe Sony might not be able to keep their infrastructure going because they're going to have to rebuild their infrastructure completely for PS4. But Xbox Live, I don't see why Microsoft can't just keep that ticking over in the background, because in comparison to their new service, it's got to be such a small service to maintain, and they've got so many communities, there. I mean, I suppose they've turned off everything for the original, because Halo 2 died a couple of years ago now, didn't it?
Well, they had, what was it? I read about they had like 2 or 3 people still playing it, keeping it online.
Yeah, they had that little, because the last server wouldn't shut down until the last player had logged out, so they had 4
which
players.
I thought that was a beautiful story. Yeah. That warmed the cockles of my heart.
Absolutely, yeah, really nice.
But yeah, I certainly think that the Xbox 360 and the PS3 won't have the longevity. Oh, to be fair, they've lasted such a long time anyway, that they don't need to go on as long as the PS2 did, parallel to the PS3. But I still think there's something they could do in place, because I think both of them, both companies realised that not everyone is probably going to at the gate buy an Xbox One or a PS4, just for a number of reasons, and the big one obviously is the economical climate. That's going to affect a lot of people, and a lot of people are just going to look at a 400 quid machine and say, you know what, that's just not something I can work with right now.
Yeah.
And as long as they don't go the route of the Canadian exclusive Wii Mini or whatever the fuck that thing was last year.
Yeah, pointless.
As long as they don't go down that route, I still think there's something that could be done with these machines going forward.
I hope so. There is actually my one big dream, which I don't think they'll realise properly, but the one thing that I really want both companies to do, and is not unreasonable at all, based on the services that they have available and the way that they've structured their networking stuff, is that the issue with backwards compatibility has been one for a long time, and it's expecting the PS4 or the Xbox One to be in any way backwards compatible is just a total pipe dream, because they don't like doing that, and it spikes high hardware costs, and emulating these old machines on the next generation, it just takes so much out of them. If you ever played an original Xbox game on an Xbox 360, it's a horrible experience. But what I'd love for them to do is just say, right, well, we've loaded the whole back catalogue of the Xbox and the Xbox 360, or the PS1, PS2, PS3 onto our servers, and all you need to do is take your disc from that game, put it in your PS4, and it will again use the disc as a key, and you can stream the game via, because Sony have got Genki now, haven't they, as a game streaming service, and it's just like, right, well, that will act as a key, and it will give you access to the game, and you play the game over a stream to your PlayStation 4 and your Xbox One. Would just be such an elegant and beautiful way of solving the backwards compatibility problem, because you don't need your hardware to support it. You simply stream the game straight to them. Okay, you've got the problem that all your gamers are going to lose their save games, but at least you can play your games. I can finally take my copy of MechAssault out of my out of storage, blow the dust off it, and stick it in my Xbox One, and it'll go, well, that's MechAssault. I'll download that. Well, not down. I'll stream it straight to your thing, and your save games will be connected with your Xbox Live log on, and it will just be sitting there waiting for you. And then they can support the the Xbox Live, the multiplayer infrastructure that way, because all their games are held at their end. They can do all the servicing and stuff there.
Or they'll all be online for 25 quid each.
Don't hurt me, Mark. Don't say things like that.
Sorry. I was taking, your futuristic cynicism for all it's worth.
We totally flipped places there, wasn't it? It was me being more dreamy and idealistic, and you're just shooting me down. You're like,
I want everyone at my base level of misery. That's how I work here. I wonder, I'm sure there's only a few cases where, say there's a game, say Rare, who obviously went from Nintendo to Microsoft. There must be a few cases where there'll be some games in that back catalogue where just there's some sort of legal issue where that might not be the case.
Well, that's true, but Perfect Dark managed to make it to the Xbox Live Arcade.
That's true.
We're never going to see GoldenEye, because
oh god, no.
There's just too much. That's three major players in Eon Productions and Microsoft and Nintendo all sitting there going, nope. And Eon Productions don't want to publicize the previous Bond movies anyway now, so they're never going to release something that does. They just keep releasing shoddy updates to the Bond license and hoping that people buy them blindly.
Hey, look, 007 Legends was a classic. All right.
Don't make me drown you, Mark. I think that was a great shame. I had a lot of faith in Eurocom as a company. They produced The World Is Not Enough, which is probably the most unsung great Bond game, at least on the N64, to be made. But Legends was a mess. And the Daniel Craig GoldenEye update that they did was solid. But the problem that they've got is that they're just trying to rip off Call of Duty, and that's just not a Bond game. When you try to do that, that's not at all. Mind you, neither's GoldenEye, really, when you think about it.
To be fair, that's the issue with just about every frickin' first-person shooter at the moment, but,
Yeah, except, it has to be said, Halo, which Halo 4 did nick a couple of tropes from Call of Duty, but they were the sensible ones, and it still remains classically Halo, which I think is a credit to 343 Industries, and I'm hoping that they can retain that sense of identity as they push forward into Halos 5 and 6. Because as a self-confessed Halo fanboy, I'm really looking forward to what they do with the oncoming franchise. But generally speaking, yeah, it's Call of Duty is still ruling the roost. Though I think Ghost is going to make or break that. If they don't manage to deliver something of Modern Warfare-esque proportions with Ghost, it will seriously hurt the entire franchise, I think.
Well, I do wonder if we're getting to the point now where Call of Duty is becoming the law of diminishing returns. And yeah, I think Ghosts is going to be that one which really solidifies which way it goes. I mean, I think they'll do okay with it just because obviously it will be the first next gen Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But perhaps after that, they probably Activision will just say fuck it. Okay, just there's a multiplayer game of it that's just there, and you can have a subscription for however much for 6 months.
God, I hope not. But yeah, take it the Battlefield route.
There's no way that will not happen at some point.
Yeah, I think you're probably right with that. But see, for my money, I wasn't a COD fan at all, really. I thought Modern Warfare 1 had some serious problems, but it did manage to get me in the end. I went through all 3 Modern Warfare games, and by the end, I was sold on it as a single-player experience. But I think without that single-player stuff, without the nuclear explosions that you have to crawl away from, and without the buildings that get blown up while you're inside them, and without the ending sequence to Modern Warfare 3, which, without any spoilers, even though it's been out for a while, is probably the angriest I've been at a character in a video game ever.
Oh, I don't know. I had Black Ops to do that for me because I didn't sort of just I was over Call of Duty just because it became the big mainstream game, because I generally like the original Modern Warfare. There's a lot in the single player campaign that does it for me, and the sort of 6 months where I was trying to play the multiplayer and then just decided, multiplayer is not really for me. If it's not GoldenEye or Mario Party 2 or Mario Kart 64, I'm just going to avoid this.
If you can't play slappers only, then there's just no point, really, is there?
This is true. But I generally enjoyed the original Modern Warfare, but no, Black Ops for me, the single player campaign, that offended me more so than a mother of 2 children watching one of them play Manhunt. I was more offended than that mother could possibly be, because Black Ops was just fucking terrible.
Well, Treyarch they've gotten better, I think, but they've just been missing the target every time. With World at War, I mean, they did, what was it, COD 3 beforehand, where everyone kind of went, what? That's the thing. And then World at War was just was really wide of the mark. On pretty
that
much
was ever. 2 steps forward and then about 12 steps back.
Yeah,
but all look zombies.
And then Blops, which was at least experimental. At least they were trying to do some of the stuff that people praise so highly in Modern Warfare. And then Blops 2, which I have to admit I haven't played yet, but I've seen quite a lot of footage of. And again, at least they're trying to do something, but they just don't seem to be able to make any of their inventions work properly.
I'm sure Blops 2 has many, many set pieces and many explosions, and it's great to just have your control in your hand and just watch everything flow by. But yeah, I'm kind of over that. And we are sort of going way off topic again.
That's true.
So what I think we will do now...
Cut out of here now.
That'll be fine. Anything quickly you would like to talk about that you have played recently, and then we will wrap up this show.
You know what? I asked because I will give a quick plug to Knights of the Old Republic on iOS, because I think it's a game that lots of people will go, what? That doesn't work, and actually it really does. So if you like Knights of the Old Republic, or you like Star Wars, or you like BioWare RPGs that are thoroughly fantastic, iOS is a really good platform for it.
Explain to me how the controls work for it then, and because it's always the big thing. Virtual controls on a touchscreen device, 9 times out of 10, as far as I'm concerned, do not work.
Well, what they've done is basically a lot of Knights of the Old Republic is buttons anyway, because it's turn-based combat. There's a lot of buttons that they've just turned into touch buttons, which work fine. You're moving through your inventory, selecting different attacks. They're just there, and it's not like using virtual joypad buttons. They're icons that you tap, and they're kind of arranged sensibly on screen, and you can just go bump, bump, bump. I want those things. And the pause combat function is obviously still there. So if you do need more time to make a decision about something, you just pause the game and make your decisions, run up your your move queue, and then release, and that's fine. So all that stuff is great. They've even added like when you've got conversation options, rather than having to tap the tiny text at the bottom of the screen, they give you a 1, 2, 3, 4 at the side of the screen, nice big buttons, so you can just select the relevant button and go with it. It's got all the original voice acting. It's got all the graphics, actually, which of course look dated, but actually look quite nice, scaled down onto that little screen, onto the iPad screen. Everything kind of goes down nicely and is ported. They've even got the FMV and everything in there, so it really is a full scale, faithful port, right down to the menu system is exactly the same and everything, even right down to the ability to select to watch individual cutscenes from the main menu, just like you could in the original once you've watched them in game. Everything is there. And then the movement, which is the only instance really where there's analog control, is very simple. You just touch on the screen and then you swipe left or right, which will move the camera, and it's dependent on how far you swipe, rather than kind of swiping and swiping and swiping to keep turning. You just kind of put your thumb down and move over to the right, and the camera will start rotating, and will keep rotating until you lift away, or down to the left, and it rotates the other way. And movement works the same. You put your thumb down anywhere on the screen, push forward, and you'll start running until you release your thumb. So it because it doesn't require any huge precision in the systems, it actually works really, really well. And then you can just tap on the screen when stuff is highlighting, and it comes up, and it feels great to play. It's a really nice way of playing a great game. So there's a bit of a plug for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think a lot of people will just kind of go, well, that can't work. It is a sizable download, though. I can't remember exactly how big it is, but my iPad was kind of going, no, I'm not going to download this. No, delete more stuff. Keep deleting things.
I have a feeling my 8GB iPhone might have to pass on that one then.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think how... I don't know how big my iPad is. I think it might be only 16 gig. It is. So, if you erase everything off your iPhone, you could probably get away with Nights on Public. But so, yeah. But more than anything else, actually, I've been playing Star Trek Rivals, which I don't know if you've come across.
I just about managed to watch the bloody Star Trek Into Darkness film.
Don't you get me? Into Darkness is fantastic.
No, I generally actually quite enjoyed a lot of it, apart from the last 15 minutes, and then I went away and did my homework as well, so I understand why all the Trekkies got annoyed with some of the things at the end.
They were all wrong.
Yes. So I'm with that, but it was a perfectly enjoyable summer action flick. But if you try to explain anything other than that about Star Trek, I'm going to be sitting here with a look of quoi on my face.
The thing about Rivals is, I mention it not really because it's a fantastic game, but because I haven't stopped playing it since I downloaded it about a week and a half ago.
Is that just to justify you downloading it, though?
A little bit. No, it's really not. It's quite because it's just a card game, and it's just. You have a deck of 5 cards selected for a match, and so does your opponent, who is a real player, who either is someone you've added to your friends list or is a random person off the internet. And each card has 4 numbers between 1 and I think 11 is there for the really like top-notch cards. And you put a card down on the play surface, which is a grid of 9 areas for cards. And then the other player has to place a card next to it with a number that is higher than the one that it's sitting next to. So, I put one down with a 1 on the left-hand side, and they can play anything from 2 and upwards, and that claims that card.
That sounds a hell of a lot like the card game from Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah, it is. It must be just nicked. It must be a rip-off thing. But you know what? The thing about it is it's contrived. It's clearly a marketing thing. It's got microtransactions up the arse. It's not a clever thing. It's clearly just a commercial cash-in on Into Darkness being released.
Is this iOS?
iOS. I don't know if it's on Android, but it's definitely iOS. But I haven't stopped playing it because I make a move, and then I stick my iPad down, and then a mate makes their move, and my iPad makes a little noise in the corner of the room, and I find myself every time getting up from the sofa and going over to my iPad and looking at what they've done and then making my move, putting it down. And it's just a game that you can pick up and put down. So as much as it is a shameless cash in, it's actually quite addictive and quite a lot of fun. And you don't have to spend any money on it, but it is one hell of a grind to get anywhere if you don't, because it really doesn't give you very much for grinding. But as far as what I've been playing, depressingly so, that's pretty much it.
Did you not play the actual Star Trek release that was kind of coincided with Into Darkness then?
I played it. I completed it. It's god awful. Okay, if you want to rant about that, I'll give you a rant about that.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Oh God, where to begin? Okay, it's broken fundamentally. I bought it because I was hoping it would be a playable cash-in that would be interesting to kind of blast through and might be quite fun as a kind of like, oh yeah, this is a tie-in while I wait for the movie to be released thing.
Well, on the surface, from a quick look at the playthrough, it looked like your sort of average third-person, over-the-top, war cover-based Gears of War type system thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much the core of it, except that the cover system doesn't work. There are stealth sections which don't work. The shooting pretty much kind of works, but there's no really good feedback from it. You don't feel like you're in combat. The weapons are almost completely needless aside from the phaser that you start with. The script is okay and the story is okay, but they're not.
Is it an original script and story?
Yeah, right. It's set between the two movies. The visuals are horrible. They range from passable to horrible. The whole experience is a really, really, really unpleasant one, and it's such a shame because it's so clearly a game where the publishers, I guess Paramount, have come along and they've said, we want a Star Trek game, and we want it to be a cover shooter because they're popular right now, and you need to have co-op because that's popular right now, and it needs to be done really quickly. So we'll shove this stuff in, and it's really, really clear that there have been some lovely ideas. Like there's some actually quite nice bits of level design early on where you're like you're outside a space station, you're running up the outside of it, and the whole thing is curved in a kind of 2001: A Space Odyssey way, and you have to. Spock has to scan something, and then that opens a hatch that you have to shoot as the other player has to shoot as Kirk. Some nice little ideas. And later on, there's like a whole section. I'm internet. I'm going to do spoilers because it's rubbish. Don't play it. There's a section where there's like a playable mind meld where Spock mind melds with a Gorn. And it could have been a beautiful sequence where you're in like a field of stars, and you could have walked through, other stars and had flashes of his, the Gorn's life and stuff, and actually kind of connected with that character a little bit, and you could have characterized them in whatever way that you chose to, but it just ends up being a corridor that you walk down until you get the next cutscene, and it's just a corridor cutscene, corridor cutscene, corridor cutscene done. Absolute travesty. The worst example of a licensed tie-in game that I've played in actually a long time. I'm really, really disappointed with it. So yeah, I'd stay away from the Star Trek game. I could go on for a lot longer, but I'm stopping myself because the internet doesn't need to hear me rant about how much.
No, I have the general gist of what the problems might exist with this game. So thank you for that. That was invigorating.
You're welcome.
But thank you for coming on and doing this. And we will sort of sit and wait with and just bated breath to see what E3 brings us next week.
Yes.
Not really a plug for me, but if you can't attend E3 and you live in London, there is a great event called E2, which is being put together by Keith Stewart, the chief editor of The Guardian, and it's taking place at the trying to remember the bloody name of it now. It's like called the Loading Now Cafe or something. I'll put the Twitter handler in, but it's a kind of gaming pub, and they're going to have like loads of developers down there, and for like all 4 days, and then they're going to be live streaming it over the evening, and it looks like it's just going to be completely insane. And I'm going to go down there on the Monday, but then I will be pissing off to Edinburgh on the Tuesday for the rest of the week, so I timed that one well. But that looks really exciting, so if anyone can go down there, I think they put some more day tickets on sale, and that's that. And Ben, again, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I feel this worked quite well, so you're probably going to come on again at some point, whether you like it or not.
It's going to tie me up and stick me on the internet.
Well, I mean, I was probably going to do that regardless of the internet bit or not.
Okay, well, there's a glimpse into the scary, scary private life of you and me.
Well, considering we'll probably be spending quite a bit of time with each other in the following months or so.
So without any context, that sounds really weird.
Yeah, I know. That's why I put it in there.
All right, okay.
And put my creepy voice on. Anyway, I think it's getting late now. That might be the problem.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to let you go and get some sleep because that's what I'm going to do. Actually, no, I'm going to fucking spend all night editing this podcast. That's what I want to do. It sounds great. Yes, Ben, once again, thank you for coming on. And everyone, thank you for listening. All 3 of you, 4, 5, I don't know. I had actually about 31 views on YouTube. I went to Russ. It's like, let's put this on YouTube. Let's have another way of getting this stuff on there. And he was like, do people actually listen to podcasts on YouTube? I was like, yeah, well, I do. And as long as I do, then I guess that's what counts. But hey, it seems to be working.
Yeah, if it works.
Yeah, it works. And yeah, so again, everyone, thank you for listening. This has been Analog Shtick. I've been Mark Robinson.
And I've been Ben Sharples.
You know your cue. Fantastic.
That's me. Yeah.
And we will see you again next time.